Can you guess what the dollar rupee exchange rate was 100 years ago? In 1925, it just cost 10 paisa to buy $1. Yes, you heard me right. Just 10 paisa to buy $1. By 1947 at independence, it was roughly 1 rupee to buy $1. And fast forward that to today, it takes 90 rupees to buy $1. So from 10 paisa to 90 rupees, that's a 900-fold depreciation in about a century. So what's really happening to the Indian rupee? And what's caused this massive decline over the last 100 years? Now, some people will argue that it's because India runs a current account deficit. That means we import more than what we export. So we need the dollars for oil, electronics, machinery, or the gold that we import. So automatically more demand for USD and a weaker rupee. Sounds logical. But here's my problem with this argument. The US runs massive current account deficits. The UK does. So does Australia. But their currencies haven't depreciated like the Indian rupee. On the contrary, China runs current account surpluses. Yet their currency hasn't massively appreciated either. So clearly, current account deficit alone does not explain the long-term currency performance. Something deeper seems to be at work. Over the long time horizon, 50 to 100 years, the dominant force of exchange rates is inflation. India's average inflation over the last 50 years has ranged roughly around 7%. And compare that to the other countries like the US at about 4%, Germany 2.5%, Switzerland 1.7%, and Japan 1%. So India is a clear outlier in that case. And we all know inflation is a silent destroyer of purchasing power. A 3% inflation differential per year may not look dramatic to you, but compound that over decades and you don't just get a small adjustment, you get a structural shift. And that's why the rupee depreciates. Not because of one bad policy, but because of inflation differentials compounding over years. Now here's where things even get more interesting. The US doesn't just run deficits. It runs deficits while printing the world's currency. We all know that the dollar is the global reserve currency. Oil is priced in dollars. Global trade settles in dollars. Central bank hoard dollars. Global debt is issued in dollars. So when America runs deficit, the world demands even more dollars. And that's a privilege countries like India and other emerging markets don't have. That means that emerging markets have to earn the foreign capital. They must attract foreign investors. And when global risk rises, this capital runs away from the emerging markets first, causing the currencies to fall also. So the rupee doesn't just respond to global trade, it responds to global confidence. Let's also now look at the long-term performance of some other currencies. The Swiss franc strengthened over this period. Singapore maintained its stability through discipline, and even Japan, despite the stagnation of the last 3 decades, has preserved long-term credibility. The rupee, on the other side, has been one of the worst performing currencies among major economies. Currencies don't reward the high GDP growth alone. They reward macroeconomic discipline. So the rupee didn't collapse overnight. It depreciated gradually, structurally, driven by high long-term inflation, external financial vulnerability, oil dependence, and a lack of reserve currency status. So 10 paisa became 90 rupees, not by accident, but through decades of compounding inflation and structural macroeconomics. So currencies reflect fundamentals every single time. And this is exactly why we at FinGuru ensure that our candidates understand fundamentals in depth. Because finance is not about memorizing theories, it's about understanding how they play out in the real world. And that's what makes you a better prepared candidate, not just for the CFA exams, but for the real markets. If you found this video useful, stay tuned for more.